Ladies, y'all would not believe this is my third time trying to make this video. First time I had the camera flipped around wrong, so I wasn't even being videoed at all. It was just audio. And then the second time it didn't turn the way I wanted it to. Anywho, I digress. I came on here because I wanted just to give you guys an update on how things went with my retrieval for IVF number 2, and also to give you some kind of comparison type notes for how different or similar this second round was compared to the first one. Forgive me, y'all know what I'm talking about with looking in the right place or whatever. It's weird. I probably will never get used to it, and I don't like shooting the video up and down like this anyway. I don't know, I just find it a little bit awkward. I like it to be horizontal. I'll fool with that later. So what happened was my last estrogen level ended up being in the mid 2000s. I can't remember the number exactly. I remember it was 23, maybe 2400s or something. And so I ended up triggering last Thursday, and I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but of course, me knowing that I have diminished ovarian reserve, I was just wanting at least 4 good eggs out of that cycle, even though the first one we got 9. But my estrogen levels were looking promising, and my doctor and I both felt the same way, that might get a little bit more, there's no telling, than the 4. And because they usually anticipate that each mature follicle puts off about 200 of estrogen for each one. So we ended up scheduling the retrieval for Saturday. I triggered last Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. I still did another dose of 375 of my follow stem. I did no Lupron, no Menopur, just the trigger. I gave the trigger to myself sub-Q, which, I mean, they had said the same thing, that was fine. And I kind of feel bad that, well, at least especially with my first cycle, I think I still did it IM, even though they didn't specify whether it mattered. But I didn't feel like it mattered, even after subsequent just regular medicated cycles I did after that first IVF. Anyway, so I kind of feel bad that I think a lot of doctors automatically make people do their trigger shots IM, because that's an 1.5-inch needle. That needle is no joke. I mean, it doesn't hurt me or anything like that. I'm fine with doing it, but it's just easy to just switch out that needle and give yourself a smaller needle and do it in your belly like you've been doing most of your stem shots. Well, so we set retrieval for that Saturday at 8:30 a.m. and we had to be at the clinic at 7:45. My husband and one of my best friends ended up going, so that worked out really good. I liked having that extra support system, as well as my husband having somebody else there to kind of keep him entertained and just to chat with while the procedure was going on, even though it doesn't take long. So I signed my consents, got undressed. Well, I kept my bra on because we all know the waist down is the business end of things. So I got ready, they got my IV in and my fluids going, and then they came and got me. I walked into the procedure room, got flat on my back, feet up in the stirrups, and they had them already really high up in the air, which compared to the first cycle, they were really already just really low set, how you would normally sit on one of the, I don't know, the little bed or recliner type things that you sit in for regular ultrasounds when you go to the doctor. But this one, they were they wanted you already in that L shape so they could get, just go to town, I guess. But so I sat in there, and I remember the anesthesiologist saying that he had already given me one of the medicines or whatnot to put me to sleep. And because, well, I don't know if you guys know this, but they give you a combination of propofol, Versed, and fentanyl to put you to sleep. And so I don't know which one he pushed first, but it seemed like it took me longer to drift off, or it could have been my anxiety or my nerves, just not knowing, how I was going to wake up this time and either be in more pain or just whatever. Y'all know all the kind of stuff that goes through your mind. So, but I remember him talking. I remember the doctor putting the speculum in, and I can remember feeling it and her positioning it and putting it right around my cervix or whatever. And I heard them say, you know, they were about to do their timeout or whatever. And I remember thinking to myself, like, gosh, won't this medicine just kick in? I want to just go to sleep and just wake up. But then once she did that and I heard them say that they were about to do their timeout, I was out. Then I woke up and I was back in the room where I originally was, in the stretcher type bed. And I heard my nurse's voice, and I think it was her, I don't know who else. It was like, oh, we ended up getting 9 eggs. And I was like, oh, that's good. I still felt kind of drowsy type or whatever. I was so relieved. I was a little teary-eyed at the time. And then my husband walked in within seconds after. I remember them hearing that. I remember hearing that. And then I know I said to him, I said, what time is it? And he said, it's 9/11. And I was like, oh, you know, that gave me even a greater sense of relief, because 9/11 is significant. Well, in the sense we've had in history, something very tragic happened to our country, but coincidentally, we ended up getting married on 9/11. So that, you know, was very significant for us. And, well, at least it meant a lot to me. So they ended up getting 9 eggs. And then I was fine, really achy, low down across my lower abdomen. And the nurse ended up giving me like a heating pad. That felt amazing, completely amazing for that little bit of time. And she said that I could use a heating pad at home if I wanted to, just for that day. But then after that day to not use one again. I brought my little prescription pain pills with me that they had already written me a script for, like in the beginning of the cycle that I got filled. I ended up taking a dose of that, even though I felt, you know, pretty good, because I was telling the nurse, like, you know, the pain that I had then, that's nothing even compared to my periods. Like, I feel worse with my period pain than I did when I woke up then. I had some blood and stuff on like the flat sheet that was under me on the stretcher that I saw once I got up and got dressed. But other than that, I got up, I was able to stand up, upright, no less. And to me, that was a huge improvement. My first IVF, I couldn't walk like upright, straight, with correct posture for 2 days. It was ridiculous. Like, it was just ridiculous. And I don't really know, you know, what the deal was with that. But this time I felt fine. I could sit up, I was sore, I'm good. You know, I peed. You know, had a little bit of blood, you know, like mucousy type blood, maybe like I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a lot. Maybe a teaspoon or so worth when I wiped after I went to the bathroom. And we got my little post-procedure instructions. I was to start my progesterone and oil IM shots that same night. And we left and went home. And then I anticipated having a really rough ride, like feeling in my belly. Again, because we were traveling one way, almost 80 miles from the clinic. And that first time we only went, it's only like less than 15 miles, like maybe 12 miles. The first clinic was from my home. And that was the worst ride of my life. Like, I kept telling my husband the whole time, man, you cannot drive. I was like, oh my God, like every bump and jerk and everything was just horrible. This time, I mean, I still felt a little jiggly, but I think only one time that whole hour, 15, 20 minutes that we traveled, that was one time where I was like, you know, where it kind of, you know, jolted, you know, like it shook me a little bit. Other than that, I was fine. I even ate afterwards. I didn't have any nausea, any headaches or anything like that. Just general achy. Still felt, you know, bloated, of course. Was really gassy, but then it was hard. It was hard to pass gas because, you know, when you try to bear down, it makes it more uncomfortable. And, you know, so that made it difficult. Plus the day, was it the day before? Or maybe it was that Thursday when I triggered. So maybe trigger day, I ended up taking a stool softener because I was so horribly constipated with my first IVF cycle. So horrible. So this time around, I made sure to take a stool softener the same night I took my trigger, so that by that time after retrieval, it would make it that much easier for me to go without having to push down really hard, since my ovaries would be so sensitive. And I figured we'd be probably doing a transfer pretty soon anyway. So we did that. I anticipated I was gonna like sleep all day that day, but that wasn't the case at all. Like, I actually had trouble sleeping. I think I might have slept an hour in between, 10 a.m. and 5. I don't know if it was just my anxiety. I don't know if the pain medicine had anything to do with it. I can't say, but I couldn't sleep. Even though I felt a little bit tired. But other than that, I didn't feel like woozy or anything. Again, no nausea or anything like that. No headache. Was walking around just fine or whatever. Didn't have any other bright red bleeding or anything like that. I had a barely smidge of pink, I think, when I peed the first time after I got home. And so yeah, like I said, we ended up getting 9 eggs this time, which is the same as we got the first time, which is good considering. Like I said, with my FSH was still about where it had been, in the high 9s, but even though my AMH level was had went up some from where it had been with my first cycle. But again, the estrogen level, like I said, right before trigger, was very promising to me and my doctor about, getting some decent eggs. So they ended up getting 9. Sunday, the embryologist emailed me and let me know that 4 of them had fertilized. And then I ultimately ended up asking him how many were mature and such, yada yada. And so they got 9. 6 of them were mature, and all of them fertilized, even though one of them fertilized abnormally, and no, one didn't fertilize, and then another one fertilized abnormally. So that left us with 4 that were growing. So we were going to tentatively just plan to do another 3-day transfer. And he said that on day 3, they'd give me a call. And if more than 2 of those 4 looked really good, he might even push it out to see which ones would make it to day 5. Even though in my mind, I'm like, oh, God, I don't really know if I want to wait that long, to have me on pins and needles, being that we didn't end up with anything, after the first cycle. But so we did that. I started my progesterone shots that night. Like I said, I felt fine. We ended up going to like a friends family gathering that night, and I felt fine. To even though I felt sore, but I was just up walking around, I think just taking it easy in general. Well, like I said, next day we got that fertilization report. We waited a couple more days. So then on Tuesday was transfer day. And the embryologist ended up calling me that morning, went over the report, and gave me a rundown about, so they were going to still proceeding and doing the transfer that day and at day 3. And that there's 3 embryos growing. One of the 4 that fertilized didn't divide, so that left us with the 3, and so we're going to proceed with doing the transfer. And so we ended up doing the transfer. Got there, they wanted us to be there at 10 a.m. I did that, drank my bottle of water before that. Embryologist came in and just went over everything, gave me picture and all that, and talked about he was happy with the way the cell division and such looked for the ones that he had, and he just picked the best the best looking. And then what was left, they would wait. He'd give it till Friday and see how, if all still looks well with growing and everything, then they would go and freeze what was left. So we did that. And I got ready, and we ended up going back in the same procedure room and got up. They set up. One doctor used a little, abdominal type ultrasound. wand or whatever on my belly. And my doctor was at my feet. And, it took them a while to really like get the picture that they needed of my uterus. And I told them that they kind of had trouble the first time as well. It took them it seemed like a good 5 minutes, like 6 minutes maybe, to really find where they needed to be. So this time wasn't too much different. And so they did a couple of trial and error, moving the catheter, advancing it forward and pulling it back to make sure that they were they had the tip of the catheter placed where they wanted it to in my uterus. So finally did that and completed the transfer, and we laid there. Well, I laid there. My husband was there, and I laid there for maybe like 15 minutes, and we just chatted and such, and said in general we felt, I think over at the end of things, we felt a lot better about the ending, how this cycle turned out ultimately in the end, than we did the first one, even though this one, as y'all know, has had its BS from the start of it, or whatever, but overall we felt, better about things. And so tentatively what we're planning to do is beta will be scheduled 2 weeks from Saturday, which will be April the 8th. And I'll make that appointment if ultimately I end up getting a positive pregnancy test, because, this is the next thing I'm going to talk to y'all about. Some of y'all that before I get to that, talking about the pregnancy test, what I wanted to mention was about my first IVF cycle. The embryos we had for this cycle, we had day 3, we had a 11 cell, 10 cell, and I don't remember if he said what that third one was. I can't remember. But first IVF cycle, what we ended up transferring was a 9 cell and an 8 cell, and the third one was a 6 cell, but the embryologist said that one arrested. He pretty much said that all at the same time, like when the day we did the transfer the first time. But those of you, I don't know, that have not followed me for a long time, my first IVF cycle, I did conceive. It was just in the wrong place. I did conceive with one of those 2 embryos that were implanted, but the baby ended up being in my cervix instead of in my uterus. So we ended up having to terminate that pregnancy at 8 weeks. So, so that's the difference of how, the embryos from day 3 from that cycle to this one, that also fed into why me and my husband just felt a little bit better about this cycle than we did the first one. So moving on to about the pregnancy test. Those of y'all that have like nerves of steel, where you can wait until beta day to get your testing done and see whether or not you have a positive beta, hats off to y'all, because I think that is pure insanity to me. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pretend to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try to wait it out and see how long I make it. No, I'm not. I'm going to test, hands down. I'm going to do it. But I will say that I am proud in that I currently do not have one pregnancy test in this house right now. And I haven't taken one yet. Today is Thursday, the 30th, I believe. So technically, I'm 5 DPO. And I haven't tested yet, like I said. But I will be getting some tests soon. I don't know if I'll do it tomorrow or whenever, but I will be testing so that I can test out my trigger and see when it goes negative. And from then, when it does go negative, and then if hoping that I do get a positive test, I know that positive is truly baby and not trigger. Some women advise against it. They're like, oh, be cautious because it could be, you could see faint positives from your trigger, etc., etc. In a sense, yes, that is very good advice, because some women if you're not familiar with how your body does cycles, medicated cycles where you use triggers, if you don't know how it's taken multiple times, how long it's taken for your body to get rid of that trigger, then you might set yourself up for some complete heartache, you know, thinking that, oh my God, my test is positive, and then come to beta day, that thing be negative. So but I'm very, very much aware that, you know, I know that my body from previous medicated cycles, I hold on to that trigger, hun, until the cows come home. I'm 12 days, sometimes maybe 13 past. And when I've used those very sensitive Clinical Guard pink handle, I think those things are probably like 10, maybe 10 IU sensitivity. I have faint lines on those things, honey, like I say, until the cows come home. So what I did with my first cycle, I used the Dollar Tree test because the MIU sensitivity on those are higher. I think they're like maybe 25 IU, I want to say. Somebody correct me if that's not the case, but I think they're like 25. So I used the Dollar Tree test, and I used those to test out my trigger until it went negative. And then I think I had 2 or 3 days of negatives, and then boom, I had a big, very, very serious positive on 7 days past my 3-day transfer, which would be 10 DPO. And I also had followed up with doing a first response that same day as well, and that was very bright positive as well. So I plan to do something just as similar this time around. As far as my symptoms go right now, like I said, I'm only 5 DPO. I'm hoping, you know, baby makes it to blast and is preparing to dig in deep this weekend. And also that what we have in the lab is doing the same, and it's, you know, become beautiful and, you know, growing to their, you know, greatest capacity, so that we can have something to freeze. But other than like I said, with that, the symptoms are right now, all I have, of course, is just the regular progesterone symptoms. My breasts feel like Floyd Mayweather. I can't talk. My breasts feel like Floyd Mayweather has just went to town on me, like lightning bolt sacks is how I describe it. They're horribly sensitive. I've had cramping here and there. I'm still terribly gassy, not necessarily bloated, but I'm still gassy. And of course my butt cheek is still sore from giving myself the IM injections. I really know I should alternate butt cheeks, but being that I'm right-handed, I just feel like I don't really know if I can maneuver my hand the correct way to really give myself the shot in my left cheek appropriately. I'm just sticking with different areas on that right side. And so other than that, nothing really going on. You know, I don't have any like spotting or bleeding. I haven't noticed any other changes other than that, and I feel good otherwise. I've just been taking it easy. So I guess that's just about all I think I needed to cover, to share with you guys. If there's anything that I didn't talk about that you guys might be curious about, for any of you that have retrieval coming up, or your in general stem cycle or a medicated cycle coming up, of course, you know, as always, don't mind to leave a comment down below and ask me, or find me over on Instagram and ask. But thank you guys for watching and following my journey. And then as soon as I find a way, or when I'm going to start doing my testing to test out my trigger and stuff to see how that trend goes, I'll be sharing that with you guys. And I wish I was more tech savvy so that I could actually insert the picture in here in this video of my first IVF cycle for how my line progression was that I took. So you can see how my test, you know, went very negative, and then I think I did have that one faint positive, and then it was wham, 7 days past, it was very much positive. So, but anyway, I'll see how that goes. But again, thank you guys for watching, and I will keep you updated as best I can. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.